In this episode, you'll learn from a professional running physio/physical therapist, key definitions and understanding of strength training words that get thrown all around to make you more informed as a runner. We're trying to go to the core of the basics of everything. Tendons versus muscle tissue versus ligaments, tendinopathy versus tendinitis versus tendinosis. Yes, they are different. Concentric versus isometric versus eccentric. You hear this stuff thrown around, we are going to help you really figure this out. Why runners should keep running and strength training if they have tendon issues within reason. Hypertrophy versus muscle endurance versus strength versus power versus elastic recoil, and defining all those things. So before we ever jump into anything, I always like to define it, because I liken this to, think of, you're talking about the leaves on a tree or the fruit from a tree. Mm-hmm. And then the question is, what do the branches look like? What does a tree trunk look like? What do the roots look like? So before you can really talk, you need to what's happening there? Why is that? And yes, you can just talk about the fruit and the leaves on the trees, but I like to know, I'm a curious person, what the hell is actually going on here? Definition 1. Tendons versus muscles versus bone strength, in a simplified way for people that are not physiotherapists and scientists.
So we have the big bulky muscles. We then have the tendon, which attaches the muscle to the bone to help move a joint. A joint is when two or more bones meet, again, to create movement and stability.
Tendinopathy versus tendinitis. There's another one, tendinosis.
Yes.
Yeah. So I see these terms pop up a lot. What's the difference between the three?
Tendinitis is a bit of an old school term because the itis infers that the tendon is inflamed. What we know now, it is a non-inflammatory condition. It's rather, and I hate this word, a degenerative condition. So that basically,
which is what I have.
Yeah, it basically means the tendon isn't as strong as we'd like it to be. They're made up of tightly bound collagen fibers, and what happens in tendinopathy is they start to break down and they start not forming as well and neatly and as nicely as we'd like them to every time you're going through your running and training. Yeah, so tendinosis is basically tendinopathy. It's just looking at it at a cellular level, but the pathology is, which is what the condition is tendinopathy. Makes sense.
Not really?
Yeah. I would almost ignore tendinosis. It's just tendinopathy. Okay. You might read tendinosis on an imaging report. It just means that area of the tendon is, again, showing that part of the condition where the cells and the collagen aren't lining up as nicely as we'd like them to. But let's put it all under the category of tendinopathy. Let's ignore tendinitis because it basically doesn't exist.
Okay, so it's just an old school term.
Yeah.
And for some reason, American physiotherapist, physical therapist, and general practitioners still use that term.
And I think it's really important to differentiate too, because something that's degenerative versus something that's inflammatory needs to be managed differently. Inflammation requires rest, potentially medications. Well, we do know you don't want to completely rest tendons. You want to get them stronger. So people might be apprehensive, doing certain tasks on their, tendinopathy, thinking that it's inflamed, where it's not the case.
That's crucial. Okay. So I hear these terms a lot in the physical therapy world, the strength training world, and it's eccentric, concentric, and isometric. And I kind of know what they mean. I hear a lot about eccentric. Everyone talks a lot about that being like the golden thing that more people should do. So tell me the definition between the three, and then when you should do each. When's the optimal time to focus on each?
So an isometric exercise is when you're holding a muscle contraction, but you're not moving the joint through range of motion.
Kind of like ice. Ice is how I like ice.
Oh, yeah, it's frozen.
It's frozen. That's how I remember it, yeah.
So an example is a wall squat. You're just sitting there, nothing's moving, but your quads are contracting. Now, concentric is the muscle shortening phase, and that's such as when you're standing up from a squat.
So you're pushing through, the hard part.
Yeah, well, arguably, because I think eccentric control is harder. But eccentric is when the muscle is lengthening. So that's the difference. We have the static contraction, isometric, the shortening contraction, which is the concentric, and the muscle lengthening phase, which is the eccentric.
And that would be the going down of the squat.
Yes, yeah.
And when I started doing eccentrics, COVID, I didn't have any more resistance because I couldn't go to the gym, and I had to do basically goblet kettlebell. I was holding a kettlebell, the heaviest kettlebell I have, and a personal trainer was like, "Do eccentrics, bro," and I was like, all right, he's like, shit's gonna get hard. And he's like, and then hold it at the bottom. And I was like, what? And oh my God, it's like, it's this whole other world, holding it slow. He's like, do 3-5 seconds down. And then he's like, he told me, I know it's different, to explode up and then hold it 2 or 3 seconds at the bottom. And that really got me into the world of eccentrics.
Yeah, I think that phase is so important. It's arguably more important than the concentric phase. You want to have good control through that muscle unit. And as well, it can also help build a longer muscle too. So I think, stretching, we need to do this to build a long muscle. If you're really strength training a joint through range, focusing on that eccentric phase, you can actually create a physically longer muscle, whereas static stretching, etc., is more how your brain perceives the stretch tolerance. You don't actually get a huge amount of change in the muscle itself. Focusing on the eccentrics will help build a longer muscle.
I know that for tendons, eccentric is really good.
Yeah, so it used to be thought eccentric exercise is the bee's knees of tendon rehab. Just do eccentrics.
Eccentrics?
Yeah, eccentrics, 12 weeks, where more of the research is coming out around what we call heavy, slow resistance training. So putting in the context of Achilles tendinopathy, if you manage it with an eccentric loading program, it is 3x12 single leg calf raises followed by 5 minutes rest and 3x12 bent knee calf raises. You do that twice a day and you do it for 12 weeks, progressing the load and how much weight you're carrying throughout it. In a heavy slow resistance program, you're lifting heavier. You can do 3 exercises per session and you only need to do it 3 days a week. So you're lifting heavy and hard and you get a few rest days. Now, the outcome with one versus the other, they had the same sort of similar change in pain, strength. However, the group that did the heavy slow resistance just were more happy about what they were doing. You're not stuck doing calf raises every second day for 12 weeks. So patient satisfaction is much better with the gym-based program. And that's my preference too.
Patient satisfaction. You do more of what you like doing.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that many patients. Oh, not the calf raises again.
Yeah.
So, you want to be short, shaft, but effective, and you can do that with the heavier stuff.
All right, and the last definition. It's a messy one, and feel free to correct me on this. So, I hear the term hypertrophy or hypertrophy, as it's spelled, HYPER trophy, and then there's muscle endurance. So these are different types of strength training. Hypertrophy, muscle endurance, general strength training, and then power. Feel free to sum that all up. Maybe give me an example of each one and when it's necessary. Because it seems like all of them are good, especially for runners. You want to have a comprehensive training routine. You don't want to just do all hypertrophy. You're not power lifters. We're not, lifting for the highest weight. But you also don't want to be doing 30 reps of body weight stuff. So maybe just go through each one. So hypertrophy first. What's an example set?
So hypertrophy.
Define it and what's an example set?
Hypertrophy is when you're getting an increase in the muscle size, but also strength as well. Typical set and rep range is 3 to 4 sets of 12.
Okay.
And an example when you do it is, I usually start most training programs in that rep range, whether it be, tendon rehab or getting someone onto a running program. Because if we're going too heavy too early, that's going to put a person in risk of injury. You need to build into, going into the lower rep ranges.
So hypertrophy is basically getting jacked.
Well, no, not for runners, because runners do worry about putting on too much muscle mass, but runners run a lot, and that's catabolic to muscle size. So if you're lifting in that, 3 to 12 rep range and you're running lots, you're not going to see a huge change in muscle size. So that's important to consider because you still are going to get good benefits in strength.
Well, while we're here at catabolic, so running is catabolic, which breaks down the muscle.
Yes.
And then strength training is an anabolic activity, which
particularly
builds
hypertrophy,
up. Yeah. And you want to, look, there's an argument, do you really need to run? I like running, but walking briskly uphill can probably do the same thing and be less detrimental on your body. I like running, so you need to counter that with anabolic type workouts, and obviously eating your protein and eating the right types of foods. So next we got muscle endurance. What is that compared to hypertrophy? And then an example set.
I hate the term muscle endurance, and I basically never prescribe it. It's when you're doing, less sets, maybe 2 sets, and you're doing higher rep range. So anything above 12 starts to creep into that muscle endurance. Muscle endurance isn't effective for endurance performance because it's not. Well, it's basically doing something almost similar than what we do, and we don't want that. We actually want to provide a heavier stimulus to get better adaptation in the muscle's capacity to produce strength. So I actually can't find one reason where I've included muscle endurance sets and reps with any of my exercise prescription.
Okay, good to know. Very good. All right.
Yeah, tendons like the slower, heavier stuff. So and that's important for runners.
General strength.
Is there a difference between general strength and hypertrophy?
Don't even think there's something called general strength. We more just have strength or maximal strength, and that's really in the low rep ranges. It's like you're looking at like a 5x5 or a 4x5. So you're lifting very heavy, but you're doing very little reps. And perhaps some higher sets. So again, maybe 5 sets, 5 repetitions, and greater than 85% of your rep max. Oh, sorry, not greater. I mean like 85% of your rep max, I should say. Yeah.
Which we might get into.
And above. Yeah.
Which we might get into the one rep max, ORM. Is the one rep max. We'll talk about that maybe in a bit. So the last thing is power, and you know, like lifting heavy is what a lot of runners say.
Power is that ballistic force in your body to produce that ballistic force. I think it is important with runners too, particularly if you have been strengthening for a while and we want to, get more explosive capacity. It facilitates that, rapid elastic recoil of the tendons. You can do it a couple of ways. You can do the power training in the gym. Set and rep range looks something like perhaps 4 sets of 6. Exercises look like, again, they're a bit more advanced exercises, but power cleans. But you can also get power development through your plyometric training too, and that's all your jumping-based activities.
Yeah.
Again, it's all about that rapid, we call it the stretch shortening cycle of the tendon and its ability for it to act like a spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the whole recruitment of all the muscles? Because
we don't want to absorb.
Recruiting muscles.
Yeah, when you are running, you actually want less almost recruitment of the muscles. You just want that snappy recoil effect. So if you're spending too much time absorbing all the load through your muscles, it's actually going to slow you down and you're going to be absorbing more oxygen. Whereas if your muscle and tendon unit can act like a spring, you're using less energy and it improves running economy.
If you want to learn more about this topic, we went into further detail. You should go and check that out right here.